Well, we have ourselves here a 2008 Mercedes S63 6.3 AMG. Oh yeah, this thing will probably be fun if we get to fix it. So, got the Alltel hooked up, and it's got a few codes in it. And they say whenever you drive it, it goes to misfiring like crazy. And if we just look at the report, scroll on down here, we've got a misfire on 1, 2, 3, 4, oxygen sensor upstream, this code right here I set, and then these two timing codes here, and then this is my favorite. This fault can be disregarded and cleared. um, when I had the snap-on hooked up to get my pre-skin, it did not actually tell me right side. It just said bank 1. So I unplugged this intake cam sensor to confirm bank 1 is the right side. So that is why that is in here. And what happens is when you drive it, it starts doing this misfire unless you drive it easy. If you drive it easy, it's just these two codes. So let's go look at some live data here. This thing will hurry up, spin a little slow. Alright, so live data. And for some reason on this thing, like if you hit smoothness of running, you get this screen, but you hit next. And then you can actually get into it. I don't know if this is just for this car or if Alltel has changed how this works or not. But as you can see, right now we have no misfires. Okay. And if we go back out here, under further actual values is where we can get to the camshafts. And bank 1 and 2, or left and right, both match. Another issue this thing has is the window is actually cracked and it does not roll up and down. Only the driver window will roll up and down. None of the other buttons do anything at all. The rears, if you control it from the switch panel, the glass does not roll up and down, but the shades on the back will work. So that's a little strange. What I've got set up here is the Varus just to watch the signal. For some reason, the AMGs have these solenoids. These are AMG solenoids. They say AMG on them. I don't know if I'd be able to get you to where you could see one of them. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know that you're going to be able to make that out or not, but they say AMG on them. And they've got these leads that kind of go off over here to what the factory solenoids would be plugged into. This is all like zip tied up. So I've pulled up the factory wiring diagram just here on my phone, and I know this 49.5 and 7 is my right side, and they both are connected here, which is also, this is one of the cam sensors. And on the cam sensor, I can tell that the connection that they're tied into is positive. So I know that they're fed positive on this red and green wire, and red and yellow, and then controlled by, let's see, which one am I on here? 95.7, this red and white. So I'm in the red and white wire right there. And for some reason, even key off, I've got 12 volts. I don't know what the deal is with that. But I've also got just a 2.5 amp test light tied in so that I could tap it to battery ground and watch this thing move on scan data. And as you can see here, when I tap that to ground, it pulls it down almost to completely zero. So let me crank it. We're going to see if we get any kind of pulse width modulation, and then we're going to ground it and watch the live data on the Autel. Okay, so that should be intake, I believe. I believe I'm in the intake. Now, as you can see, we do have some command from the engine computer, and we're now at just a negative 14, 15 degrees. So let's ground this thing. Well, it does move. Interesting. As you can see, that goes to zero. But why is there data? Why is our data not showing that it's moving? That's interesting. It clearly moves. Wow. See, I'm just touching this. The live data is not moving at all. Very interesting. It's not what I expected. So I've moved over into the other wire, which I think is the exhaust. But anyway, I'm going to graph these and do the same thing. And it's probably going to stall because it stalled on me the first time, but we actually had some movement there. So the right exhaust moves and shows that it moves, but the intake is not. Let me do that again with the intake. So I'm just going to move it from this one back into this side. As you can see, we've got our base. I'm pretty sure that's just going to be circuit check. And I'm going to touch this to ground again. We're going to see if this moves. So we know the other one was the exhaust. So we're looking for this intake one to move. Why is that not moving? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I wonder if for some reason it's ignoring that sensor. So come to get some gas. I was watching the live data on the camshafts, and they did move, but they kind of moved in ways that I didn't think. Before I left, I cleared the code, so it had no codes in it, and it almost immediately started misfiring. But what happened to the camshaft movement is pretty strange. So I went in and cleared the codes again, and the only things that reset were the misfire codes, not the cam timing codes again. So I'm just going to pull off again and let y'all watch this and see if it does it again. Okay, so no movement yet. Just fine. You see how everything says not learned? Now it's learned. Look at my angles. They are opposite just about of bank 1. Oh, quit moving. I mean, look at that, like 26 and 28 degrees and 8 and 12. Pretty way off. So are we actually out of time, and it's just now kind of like showing me real data? And now we're starting to feel a little bit of a miss in it. But those data figures are way off. It's like we're stuck at 26. And we should be in the negatives. Pretty interesting there. So I'm kind of wondering, are we like out of time, or are we out of time due to the solenoids possibly being plugged up backwards for some reason? I don't know why they would be plugged up backwards, but I think I'm going to cut the zip ties loose so I can actually pull those harnesses up and out and see which one each one is plugged into. I don't know that I'm going to find anything with that, but I'm clearly out of time just by looking at the data now that the data is reading. So right now the car is running okay. It doesn't feel like it's got all the power it should have. And it's not doing the misfire again yet. But yeah, it's definitely low on power. And those data figures are just really strange. So let me look at that and see what is going on with that. I can tell it is doing something with the solenoids though, because like now we're down to negative 15 again, 28. Like it lunged, like it finally moved. But I know the phasers move because like I had when I was tapping on the ground through my test light, the engine was clearly changing, and on one of them it stalled, which I think was the exhaust. So this car's weird. Like right now, like if we stop, see how we're at negative 15 and 26, which matches. They both match. But give it just a little bit of gas, it's like when it tries to change the angle, it goes the wrong direction. See that? So is it changing the direction? Like, are they flipped, or are they just flowing too much? Not real sure, but by the angles, like you would think bank 1 and bank 2, if you want the intake at a certain degree, they should match. So it doesn't make sense why one would go negative and one would go positive. And they both show negative, like when it's sitting still. So it's almost like maybe negative 15 is like home, and then whenever it gives it just a little bit of oil pressure, it pegs out all the way one direction. Because see, we got stopped again, zeros, so or negative 15. Give it just a little bit of gas, and 26, 27. And this one's at 9 and 10. So it's really like maybe they're flowing too much oil. I may do some swaptronics. Swap the solenoids from bank to bank. They're right on the top. They seem fairly easy to just move around. So I think that might be what I do. Just just to see if it's solenoids or not. All four have been swapped. Before I took them off, I wrote on there like right exhaust, left exhaust. So that's one way I could keep up with them. Also doing basically like just the exhaust both at a time and then the two intakes at one time. And I also did double check where these plug in at. They are plugged in to the correct harness. So let's get this thing out on the road and see what happens with it. Alright, so I got them swapped around, and as you can see, we're still not learned. So let's just drive it and see what happens. Interesting. They're exactly the same. They are exactly the same. What are the odds of that? That's crazy. So, is it a temperature thing? Have they cooled off enough to where they're now working? Or were they actually plugged up wrong and I thought I was right, but I might have been wrong when I was looking at them? Either way, the car's happy right now. So let's keep driving a little bit. I mean, they are dead on. Huh. I really don't know what to say. I'm kind of shocked. This thing was like every time I drove it, the camshafts acted funny. I've drove it a few times. I've actually been sitting on this car for a couple weeks because I hadn't had time to get to it. But it almost looks like I might have accidentally fixed it because maybe when I looked at the plugs, everything was kind of zip tied together still, and I was just kind of like pulling and looking around, and maybe I just wasn't looking at them real good. I probably should have cut all the zip ties loose and separated them out and looked at them. But so far, everything looks fine. Like, this is crazy. I really don't know what to say. I think they were plugged up wrong. And I just somehow missed it. Well, let's let some traffic clear and we'll give this thing some throttle and see what happens. It's peppy. So, yeah, I fixed it. Them things had to have been plugged up backwards. Had to have been. I just didn't notice it. Like I didn't pay enough attention whenever I was checking it because it's driving perfect. I do have a check engine light back on for the right side oxygen sensor open circuit. So I want to go see if that's unplugged. I don't think it is, but We'll check the oxygen sensor circuit and see what's up with that. Oh, and if you're wondering about the oil condition, the oil actually had just been changed. Um, you know, old oil, low oil, that all can cause weird timing issues. But the service sticker up here, 104,127. Car's got 104,249 on it now. So it was like 100 miles ago the oil was changed. Still waiting on the oxygen sensors, but I wanted to check something. I wanted to test something out. As you can see right now, sitting here, both camshafts say not learned, and it's because I cleared the codes. So let's, I don't have any codes set. So let's drive just a little bit and let it learn these. And let's see. And all four have learned. And everything matches each other. Okay? So what I want to do, since I believe those wires were swapped for the right bank solenoids, I want to take and swap them and drive this thing and see if my camshafts move in the directions that they were before, where it was pegging out the output side. So that would be the exhaust. The exhaust was going full to 26 degrees, if I remember right. Right now, everything's working fine. So what I'm thinking is the ECM fault. It was controlling the intake, so it's pushing the intake, but it's in fact was pushing the exhaust, and that was causing our issue. So let me get back down here to the shop, and I'm gonna swap those two wires and drive it, and we'll see what happens with our data. Okay, so there's the two plugs. I've basically just kind of swapped them around. So now the intake from the ECM is actually going to be controlling the exhaust. So let's go drive it and see what happens. So they are swapped, and let's see what happens when it tries to move one cams when we pull out here. There we go. That is exactly what we were seeing before, and proving what I thought, even though when I checked it, I just somehow, I maybe just tugged the wrong one or seen it wrong, but the proof is in the data, and those solenoids was plugged up backwards. So that's pretty interesting. Let me get this swapped back around, and the customer will be extremely happy that this thing doesn't need a timing job. So putting everything back together, and I'm wondering like how these things got swapped. And I believe the valve cover gasket was replaced. If you look, you can see a bright orange gasket in there that looks pretty new, and everything is real clean. Both sides have it. And also I noticed the screws are missing out of the coil packs on this side for some reason. They only have one. Come on, focus. They only have the top one. The bottom one is missing across all of them. I believe that's what the cause was they replaced the valve cover gaskets, or maybe did plugs or something, and got those plugs mixed up. And I don't know. Who knows? This thing did come from auction. It could be auction gremlins. Uh, there's no telling, really. But anyways, that's it for part one. Hopefully there's going to be a part two, figuring out these windows, why these windows don't work. Well, got under here doing some looking around, and this is some rodent damage, maybe some dog damage, not real sure, but this is transmission harness. There is a little bit of damage to the wires there. Um, Everything else on the right side looks fine. The left side oxygen sensor wire, though, has been pulled down and slightly melted. I don't know if y'all will be able to really pick that up or not. If I can get my lights shine on it just right. It's like the housing has melted onto it. For some reason, though, this side is working correctly, but it's been pulled down off its little holder, so I'm going to fix that. I'm going to fix this, and this is the plug that is setting the code, and I don't, it's definitely plugged up, but there's a lot of oil and stuff under here, and looking in the wires, I don't know if y'all be able to make that out or not, but there's water. There's something in there. So I think that's got in there to the, there's like a little resistor thing in here. And I think that's probably what's throwing it off. Because watching data, this thing starts out fine and then it went up to like 5 volts, like 4.5, 5 volts, which is absurd. So probably just gonna replace that sensor. I might replace that one. I don't know. We'll see what the customer wants to do. But I'm gonna fix these wires because this thing's been chewed on or something, and see where we get with it from there. So just kind of show you the wire condition, like you can kind of see a little nick there. That's a pretty bad spot. Several chew marks. And I basically just kind of cut the sheathing off to where I could expose all of it. And it was basically from one end all the way back over here to the other end. So I'm just doing them one at a time. I've already got this red wire done here, which is the battery power feed, I believe. And I wanted to show you kind of what I'm doing. Of course, I'm soldering, but I'm also having to like clean this because the corrosion is actually already like getting like up into this. So basically cutting the cut spot out, stripping it, opening it up and cleaning it with some deoxant. And then when I wrap my wires together, also just taking squirt a little bit of flux on there to help the solder get in there, and the solder will actually clean the rest of the corrosion out. Like it'll push it off. And then I'm double heat shrinking it. Both of these are sealed, so they'll glue down. And basically, it's one will go up, and the other one will go up over it and overlap the whole thing, so that I've got 2 seals. Basically, this one is sealing this, and then another layer to seal this one. And it gives just an extra layer between my wire here, because these are going to be like really close together once this all gets taped back together. So I'm just trying to give an extra layer to keep these from being able to poke through eventually. You can kind of see where the inner heat shrink stops here, and this one overlaps. And I make sure that I get good glue coming out both ends, even on the inner one, just to make sure this thing seals really good. Don't want any water getting in this, and really wanting to try to seal out any oil, because this thing does have an oil leak from something. And I think the oil leak is part of the reason. And that being said, with the oil leak, I'm also, before I stick these on, I clean these wires. I basically just take a rag and I spray a little brake clean on this, and I clean the resin off from the flux, and then clean off any of this oil, because this has still got oil soaked in it too. So I want to make 100% sure this seals. Okay, so there we go. There's the start of it. And got it zip tied back up into place. Made sure it was good and secure, it doesn't move. And that would be the finished repair for that wire. The customer did okay just getting some oxygen sensors to replace this chewed up one and this one that's bad. And here is the chewed up mess that was cut out. I don't really know how much this you're gonna be able to pick up, but like right here was a chew mark, and then here. So basically, I just cut from one end of the chew marks up to the other end. Let's see. See, like right there's a chew mark. Something just went really all over. It got these data wires, and I'm sure this was probably a turn on. So it's pretty safe to say that this was module power, this was module ground data, and a ignition or turn on wire. So some of these were getting pretty bad, so eventually they would have caused some major issues, particularly this ground one. It's pretty gnarly.